Hey there, everybody. It's coming up on noon. I've been potting things all morning. Here is some of the chicken compost mixed with some of the fill dirt, our little bubbler, and all this is an air hose pinned to the bottom with a whole bunch of stones sunk down here just to aerate this. I find that the mosquitoes don't even bother me if the sound of bubbling water is around. I'm much more likely to get bitten by backflies than mosquitoes. It's almost like they know that bubbling water will kill them. So we have some rudbeckia that I've been planting up. Some Nanking cherries in those knockouts pots. I have some amaranth seeded out in those pots. And then as we come over here, you'll see the rest of my collection of things thus far. I want to take a quick note. Almost all of these, each group of plants, each particular species that I have here, was taken from approximately It's taken from approximately 1 or 2 square feet of space. So even though Nicole and I have almost 6 acres, if all you have is a parking space or a little postage stamp lot, this is entirely within the scope of your abilities, and I believe in you and encourage you to do this. So what we have in our design and going forward into the permaculture nursery is this mass of wood chips, right? I am still working my way through that pile over there. We've extended the berm quite a bit. And so last year in this space, up to about where the corner of the house is, I guess, but more in front of where this tree is and to the left of us, Nicole and I packed out mushroom spore of a couple different varieties into here and then covered it with leaf bags and mowed leaves and grass clippings and then wood chips. And so what we are doing is every time we water these, it feeds the pile of wood chips that the mycelium are colonizing. And it also gives them a shady space, which is what they need to not dry out and to continue pushing their way through the pile. So even just by stacking the pallets out and having an organized, it's not a sales space, it's just a display space for purposes of the insurance policy that covers our home. But so this display of plants is a staging area for me to be able to bring out to the truck to go to market, or for neighbors who go, oh wow, you have one of those, I was hoping for one, and they can get one. This also will be feeding Nicole and I later in the season when those mushrooms start flushing. And so all of the rudbeckia came from a 2 square foot space up against the house. We have a French drain on the side there to keep the basement drier. And so every year I just come with my hand and I kind of scoop up against the sheet of Tyvek and leaf litter, and I get a whole bunch of plants that way. And then the maple trees were grown out in an air prune box and then transferred to pots. I have lost a few during transfers, but that's okay. Really what we're hoping for here is kind of a land race towards hardier genetics and things that can take a beating. The hosta all came from 1 square foot of space. The forsythia here were all from where those pots are. So if you have a little bit of a garden, or your neighbor has a little bit of a garden, there's no reason for you not to try and pin something that's going to be a stoloniferous grower and get everything going. All of the willows were in a 5-gallon pot in the garage over the winter, and that's it. So a whole bunch of mint dug up from a square foot around one of the apple trees, and a whole lot of other mint dug up from a square foot around one of the raspberries by the front door. I had put one long pie pumpkin out in some mulch last fall when it got a little too yuck for me. Buried it nice and deep, and then yesterday pulled up a clump of seedlings, teased them apart in some water, and potted them out. There are 20 here, but I've got about another 20 out in the property, in the woods, and in the gardens. And then we have a whole bunch of tomatoes, eggplants, and some other things starting in those trays. But so, all of this is just one thing. It's just, so, we'll say 1 square foot, 2 square feet, 3 square feet, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 square feet for over 150 plants. And so this isn't even the full selection of things that we're growing this year. This is just the stuff that's come up so far that we can transplant. And our plan this year, as we get our name out, and I would offer this as a consideration for any of you who are planning to start your permaculture nursery or your regenerative nursery in the vein of doing something like this, where you grow in ground, transplant into pots for local sales, and then do bare root as part of your business model. Plan to have decorative offerings, right? It doesn't all have to be specialist. You have to know what to do and where to plant and weedy potential and all of that. It's daunting for a lot of people. They want something that's going to look nice, that they can understand and reference, that they don't have to worry about. So, the comfrey, great. I'm going to bring some in case people want it. We had a lady last year who spent a couple weeks trying to get some cuttings of this from people, and she kept running into folks who either were trying to sell her something else, which is not what she was looking for, or who misunderstood completely. And so we'll have these available, but it's not the kind of thing that I'm going to lead with. I'm going to lead with something like black-eyed Susans, or a Japanese maple, or variegated hosta, or super undercutting the market forsythia, local yarrow. These types of things are plants that people are vaguely, if not mostly, familiar with. And so it gives them an easier transition when you start talking about the weirder plants, or the superfoods, or things like Good King Henry, or Habilitzia, or the Bocking 14, or talking about the Nanking cherries, or all of these random things. In my experience, that scares off people. And so what I would argue is that our job as a starting permaculture nursery in our first year is to introduce ourselves, let people know that we're not just weirdos with some crazy plants that nobody's ever heard of, right? We're gardeners, just like them. We love our plants. We want to share our passion with our neighbors. And I think that's a great mindset to have if you're starting a nursery, or if you are just one of the fortunate ones who are able to have large spaces, large properties, or if you hustled and managed to get even a small space or small property. I think that doing something like this is potting up the extra, giving it away to friends and neighbors, sharing with your community. I think that's the responsibility of all of us who are on this journey of gardening. But I just thought I'd share some ideas with you folks if you're looking to start a permaculture nursery. This is what the beginning of our first season looks like. I have a few more things left to do, and then I'll probably be moving dirt this afternoon. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, if you have some ideas of how I can make this a little better or a little smoother, I'd love to hear it. I spend a lot of time just sitting by myself listening to either music or podcasts, doing gardening stuff. So anytime you folks leave a shout, it feels really good. Love you all. Till next time, thanks for watching. Happy planting.